Hi, my name is Norman and today I'm going to build a custom watch. Well, before we hop in, I just want to tell you I have a certain way of doing that. So there are probably people around here on YouTube who are much more capable of doing that and doing it properly. So if you're here to actually learn how it's done, yeah, you should look elsewhere. But if you're just here to enjoy the ride and see what I'm doing, stay tuned. This build today is going to be based on a Seiko SKX013. So that's the mid-sized Seiko diver at 38 millimeters. You know, I think my wrists could actually pull off a 42, but I recently just, you know, came to enjoy the smaller watches. So 36, 38, I just think they're a lot more comfortable to wear. So yeah, I went with that one. The centerpiece of this build will be that beautiful dial from the Seiko SRPD31, I think. Well, it's made by Seiko and just look at it, how beautifully matte black it is. That's a feature you're rarely gonna find in aftermarket dials. If you want to learn more about the parts and especially where I sourced them from, I'm going to link all of them down below in the description, so you can go and check that out if you want to build something similar. So I'm going to start from the outside, so we're going to finish the case first. The reason is because when I finish the inside, I have this dial and the hands and all that. You know, it's in danger when it's not inside here or inside the packaging. So I want to finish the outside first so that I can, you know, finish the inside later and immediately put it in here. So here's the gasket. I take it out usually because, you know, if I just rely on the gasket staying in place, it's not going to stay in place. So it's so far zoomed out at the moment because first thing to do is adding the crystal. So bear in mind this is the 013. If you have the SKX007, you have to insert the chapter ring first. The 013 works a little bit different. You're gonna put the chapter ring, just sandwich it between the dial and the crystal later. So you're not gonna, you know, yeah, you're gonna add it later. Okay, so first I'm gonna insert the gasket, the crystal gasket. What the hell? Oh, right. Don't need to insert one because there's already one installed. I was wondering why it didn't fit. Great, we have a spare gasket. Now I need to find the matching die. So we need one which is going to press from the top for the crystal. This one seems about right, and then another one which is holding the watch from the bottom. Yeah, it works. So you can actually do this by hand, but I'm going to use a crystal press because if you're doing it by hand, it's going to be a whole lot harder to press it straight into the case. So this is the crystal. Well, glad they marked top. I usually just, you know, drop the crystal here and then put it carefully inside. And then you just gently turn this thing until the crystal is seated. So it's not completely inside, unfortunately, so I need to help it a little bit. What I'm checking right now is if the crystal is straight. It's hard to tell if it's flush, but you know, if it's aligned with the case or if it's uneven at some point. All right, looks great. So next up, we're gonna install the rotating bezel, right? And for that, we're gonna use lube. On my previous build, I actually forgot to lube the bezel, so it was kind of hard to turn and it kind of sucked. That is just silicone grease, and it's for gaskets. Yeah, it's just gonna prevent them from getting brittle over time, and also making a better seal, and also of course lubricating in case of the bezel. So just put it in, spin a little bit, and here we are, it's greased. And the gasket goes in that groove here around, I suppose, I don't know. It looks like it does. Yeah, in my previous case, in the Namoki case, it actually was already installed. Oh, here's, no, yeah, that's wrong. You can see, I am not an expert. This one is actually, I think, the Caseback gasket. Yeah, looks like. So, yeah, just gonna put it back in here and use it later for the Caseback. So, I'm gonna take this one out. Right. Another one. And back in. Okay, now we have to install the ratchet. It's very important not to forget it. Just put it in. It just sits here with these two notches. We're gonna make sure that these two are actually aligned, because it's very, very easy to bend them when installing when they're not aligned. So yeah, these two are supposed to be aligned, and they are. So we're just gonna insert this one here, and then we're gonna come back at our crystal press. And yeah, first thing to do is change the die, the upper one at least, to something larger. Put it in again. And there you go. Now we have a very hard to turn rotating bezel. What the hell is going on? There is a gap in here and it's not in here. So I'm not sure what's happening, but I'm trying to remove the bezel again. Unfortunately, I don't have a bezel removal tool, but I'm gonna try it the old-fashioned way. Let's see what happened. Okay, I think it wasn't a very good idea to remove the gasket, but I'm not sure if that was the culprit. Now with the gasket properly seated, hopefully. I'm not entirely sure what's the problem here. See, it runs okay. It's not very smooth, to be honest, but I think that's actually a production issue. Let me check again. I installed the bezel without the gasket, and I realized that it still does have the same amount of play. So my assumption is that, well, there's a reason why this case is a lot cheaper than this one. So this case here is from Namoki Mods. It's flawless, perfect tolerances and all that, right? And I think here they just saved a little bit of money. So it's okay. There's a different price you pay when you're not paying with money, right? So I guess I just paid with quality, because I was sure that I installed the bezel without being misaligned, the gasket. So I think that is just part of the game, I guess. I'm just gonna put the bezel in, and maybe one day I'm gonna swap the entire case. Okay, for now we're done with the case. I'm gonna put it aside. Next up comes the dangerous part. The dial It's really, really hard to find. It's sold out at Tokai Labs at the moment, at least. Yeah, I'm gonna be very, very careful about that. Why is that so? Okay. Okay, we're gonna start with opening the dial. So, and the dial has 2 feet at the bottom. So usually when you're buying aftermarket Seiko modding dials, they have 4 feet and you gotta cut off 2 feet so that the dials are compatible with different crown positions. But because this one is from Seiko and not aftermarket, it only comes with 2 dial feet. So this dial is just compatible with 1 crown position. So I'm going to drop it. And now you can actually compare the blackness, right? See the reflection on the sub-dial here with the day and the date. It's almost silverish compared to the blackness of the Seiko dial. So yeah, definitely worth it. Just gonna make sure I'm never gonna touch it, so every speckle of dust is gonna get blown away instead of using Røde or anything, because these dials, they're not very forgiving. So, and next up, the hands. I think I'm gonna start with just opening them, because that seems already like being a challenge. Our hand. I don't know if there's like a proper way to do this, but that's apparently the spirit of the whole video, right? All right, I'm a little bit nervous. So, I'm gonna pull out the crown. Oh, it already is. So we're gonna turn forward until one of the day or date starts moving. Now, see, the 6 started moving. A lot of people prefer to have the movement complete, but that means it's gonna start moving at around 10 o'clock. So what I do is I love to have like midway movement, so that when it's 12 o'clock, it's also somewhere in between here, right? Just gonna dab the hour hand with Røde. I have a hand setting tool, which is handy. I'm just gonna set hour hand. These hand setting tools are the biggest fake news ever. Remember not to touch the dial, right? I'm trying to get the hour hand as parallel as possible. Looks pretty parallel to me. Okay, next up, the minute hand. Jeez. Look, if the fear of having shaky hands has held you back of starting your own watch modding journey, you know, let's just say if I can do it with these shaky hands, you can do it too. All right, take it for a quick spin.
mean, I do have shaky hands, but at the moment I'm trying to hammer down the hour hand a little bit because it feels like it's going up this way. Yeah. All right. I'm happy with the alignment. And now the second sand. So the lollipop here in the back is bent a little bit downwards. So I'm going to go with my tweezers in between. I'm trying to bend it up again. Oh crap. That. Come on. Just came loose completely, right? Did it? Yeah, it did. Okay, another go. I know it's really hard to tell what's going on, but you know, it's watchmaking, right? I think the second sand still needs a little bend, but on the other side now. Now there's enough clearance between the seconds and the minutes hand. So we're good to go. It's alive. So now that we got the most nerve-wracking part out of the way, we can get to the next nerve-wracking part, which is putting the chapter ring onto the dial. I was concerned about the clearance between chapter ring and dial. Let me just show you. See, it does not really fit around the applied indices. But here's the thing, they are actually applied. There are holes and there's positive contact and all that. So I'm gonna do something risky, which is just pressing it down. So that now chapter ring sits flush with the dial. Yeah, didn't look like much, probably, but yeah, it's gonna work great. So I don't need to modify any parts. Phew. Now we have to get the crown, the temporary crown out. For removing the crown, I have something like a very unorthodox method. So there's a little lever in here which is holding the crown in, and unfortunately I don't have three hands, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use my mouth and remove the crown. So now I'm going to make sure that there's no dust inside here, and also of course inside here. Moment of truth. Now look at that. Also, I managed to get it quite dust free. There's one tiny speckle here at 10 o'clock. That's about it. So I think I'm going to clear it out first, actually. Just take a little bit Røde. I said boop. Yeah, there you are. It's gone. You probably didn't notice on camera anyway, but I did, and now it's dust free. Just to make sure. So now for the next step, I'm gonna install the crown. Luckily they provided enough spare crown stamps, so yeah, I can mess it up a bunch of times before we can get worried. First of all, to start, I'm gonna screw in the crown into one of the stems without trimming. Gonna just put it in. So next we're gonna take the calipers and just measure. Whoop, there we go, a lot better, right? I'm gonna measure between the end of the crown and the thing where you screw the crown in. And actually we don't need to remember anything because it's calipers. So we just lock it in like here so it doesn't move, and that's our reference. Okay, so now we screw the crown back out and we take our reference and cut it off. So here's a little trick. You measure, then you put your wire cutters here, and then you cover it with the cloth, and then you grab it again and cut. So why did I do this? The reason I did this is because that piece here, well, it's quite long because I have a small case, right? But this little piece which you cut off, it's gonna fly to Nirvana. And it actually happened to me that I found one again stuck in my foot because these are little needles basically, and when you know when you have bad luck, yeah. So to prevent it from flying, we're gonna use one of these cloths, and you're gonna thank me later. So, and before we screw the crown in, we're gonna just take a file and file it off a little bit, because we do not want to damage the internal threading from the crown, and that's gonna prevent it. Let's give it a try. Also, you could get a pin vise. Would be a lot easier than like this. All right. It's already pretty close. You can see there's just a little bit of threading left. So we need to cut off like 0.5 millimeters. So I'm not going to measure it because, well, I'm just going to eyeball it. Actually, I'm not going to cut it off. I'm just going to file it down. So this is thread lock, or whatever you want to call it. Dab it in a little bit of glue, screw it completely in, and then we let it dry. So now let's see if it fits. There you go. Perfect. And well, last but not least, we're going to take the gasket from earlier, the one which we mixed up, and just put it in here. It's the Caseback gasket. Yeah, you're wondering why this thing is so deformed. That's why. Oh, right. I almost forgot. I'm installing the chapter ring last. Bezel insert, not chapter ring. Because, well, it needs to be aligned with the insides of the watch, right? This is the double-sided tape we're gonna use to apply the chapter ring. So in case you were wondering how the ceramic part is attached to the metal of the watch, it's just 3M double-sided tape. Nothing fancy, because this stuff will hold forever and longer. No need to over-engineer, right? Speaking of over-engineering, the cutout here is really bad. That they could over-engineer, because it's not coming loose from the middle piece. Maybe trying different way around. Come on. See, even though I did such a shitty job with removing the double-sided tape, you can still use it. Like, look at that. All right. There are two ways. Either put the tape on the bezel insert or the bezel. And I think this time I'm going to put it on the bezel insert because, yeah, I messed it up. Now you can see this one here. This is where I messed up. Just going to remove that section. And take a little bit from here just to fill it up from the center section. Let's get another piece. So actually, like 75% of that 3M double-sided tape would be enough. That I'm just adding these snippets here for good measure. Okay. Now, just turn it a little bit so that, you know, it stays in its natural position where it wants to stay. And then we drop it in at 12 o'clock. Try to align the bezel insert with the inside of the watch. This is why I went with the Crystal Times Sapphire Crystal, because it's flush with the bezel. Usually when you're going for crystals from for the SKX013, there's a little gap here in between the crystal and the bezel insert, and I found that pretty ugly. So yeah, that's why I bought these things from Crystal Times. Whew. Let's put it on. Look at that. Nice. That's it, folks. Thanks for checking out this video. I hope I inspired you as well to start building your own custom watch. It's so fun to, you know, just dig through the internet and search for the parts you want to have. And then, yeah, my dog is currently in a cuddly mood. Yeah, it's such a great hobby, because I always enjoy hobbies where you actually end up with something you can use, right? Because I don't know, window color or something, it just sticks at the window and then it does nothing, right? Yeah, watch or other things which you can wear daily. It's pretty cool. So that's it for this video, and see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.